Oh, are we live? Oh, we're making a live podcast right now.
We are. Oh, wonderful. Hello. Hi, everybody. You may see the remnants of me trying to make marshmallows before we start this podcast. And let me just show you before we begin. That's why you're trying to make
a perfect, appropriate pan size for a nice marshmallow there.
So for those that are listening, I chose a pan that was maybe 10 times too big. I'm working on a marshmallow before we began live, and dumb me thought, oh, I could squeeze in making homemade marshmallows before we go live. And I've been holding up everybody as I've tried to clean up a mess of marshmallows everywhere. Chris made a joke that he was like a PA on a Valley
film
porn set.
I mean, when you were just spraying marshmallow fluff all over the kitchen.
Well, you got some in his eye.
Yeah, I did. So this is also true. So I was blending the gelatin. So traditionally gelatin, I mean, it's basically gelatin or egg whites, but gelatin with inverted sugar, and I'm whipping it up, and I put it in a wrong bowl. It was way too big again. And I'm using a hand blender that was way too powerful for what I needed to do, and immediately it shot into my eye. So I had a hard time opening up my right eye because it's glued shut.
Jesus Christ, dude. Okay.
It glued shut.
Yeah. No,
It actually popped my contact out of my eye.
I think we got.
So I don't know if you guys watched. I used the sink and I washed off my contact and popped it back into my eye, because here on the Dave Chang Show that we don't have time for injuries.
No. Listen, it happens to the best of us. That's what they say.
Anyway, so today, if you're wondering, we're not talking about gelatin, we're not talking about marshmallows, we're not talking about porn sets, we're talking about fish. So stay tuned. We have Mr. Liwei joining us today from the Joint Seafood here in Los Angeles, and we have Chris Ying himself.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to the show. 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome to the Dave Chang Show, part of the Rigor Podcast Network, presented by Major Doe Media. Thank you, Latingo, as always. If you're listening on the podcast via Spotify, you're going to be able to watch this, not immediately, but if you're listening to this, you can turn your phone around and you'll be able to watch this. We are available on YouTube as well, the Dave Chang Show, and also audio on all the other ways you can listen to your podcast. What do we have in store for today, Mr. Yang?
So we did an episode, I don't know, 6 months ago, 5 years ago, with about buying beef, buying high quality meat in this country, and it was eye-opening for us. I think it was eye-opening for a lot of listeners in terms of just like, what are you looking for? What is good meat to begin with? And we figured we'd do.
Is that a callback? Is that a callback, Chris? Eye-opening? What a jerk! What a jerk!
It's but we figured we'd do the same thing with fish and seafood and how you buy fish. So maybe the best way to start this off is to sort of define the issue. You want to talk a little bit about just the issue at hand?
Sorry for this preamble before we get to somebody that knows what they're talking about. But I think that when you talk about home cooks or even restaurant cooking, right, there's two misperceptions. One is fish is easy to cook in a restaurant setting. It's actually very, very difficult. Is oftentimes considered the most difficult station because of the finesse and the timing and the potential to constantly overcook fish, let alone the handling of the fish and getting high quality fish. That's a whole nother debate. We will not talk about that today. Maybe brief topics here or there about restaurant fish cookery. But I think when you talk about cooking fish at home, it is just like a no man's land of like, where do you find answers, right? They often say, hey, go talk to your fishmonger. But last time I checked, that is not a growth industry. It's funny because they'll always say that on food TV or whatever. Go talk to your local fishmonger. I'm like,
ask your fishmonger what's fresh. Ask them to break it down. It's like, have you met my fishmonger?
And then here's another question. If you do find a fishmonger, who taught this fishmonger?
Exactly.
Right? It's not. It's just something that's become a really bad culinary platitude about talking to your fishmonger. But like, where the fuck So number one is, the question is, how do you know if a fish is fresh? How do you judge the quality of a fish? Number three is, how do you cook it, right? And all the other recipes. And then I would probably say a fourth one is, and I think this is an entry point for a lot of people. They'll say, oh, what's your favorite flavor? What's your favorite kind of dish? I have nothing wrong with it. But like blackened fish and things that are heavily spiced, I love, but that's not like the entry point I think it should be for most fish. But I would say like heavily spiced, heavily flavored fish is oftentimes an entry point for fish cookery. And then clearly there's a lot of fried fish. But I think overall, people at home when they go to the grocery store are flummoxed, right? About what do I buy? So they'll go to the person behind the counter and they'll say, hey, what's freshest right now? There's a lot of marketing. And I don't even blame them behind the counter. There's a lot of misinformation that are led to them or labeling that is not actually correct. I would say most of the fish behind the counter is oftentimes previously frozen. It might be extremely small font, like 4-point font, right. Like previously frozen. Right. It might say sustainable.
Oh, they love to use that.
Sustainable fish. Okay. Locally sourced. That could be like, hey, I called my fish vendor 20 miles away. Yeah. Seriously, these are all terms that you will find. And oftentimes they'll be like, I find if you do buy, say, remote, right, through, one of the remote apps, they love the grocery stores love it when you're like, hey, 2 pounds of fish, sucker. You know what you're getting? End piece, end piece, end piece. You're gonna get 2 pounds of a smorgasbord of end pieces, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you're oftentimes paying for the premium cut anyway. That's a whole nother consideration. We've had Josh Nyland on, we've talked about it as well. I think this is probably the next 5 to 10 years, my prediction that we're gonna have a sea change in how fish is procured, handled, and sold in supermarkets because there's nowhere else to go, right? And the same principle that we've had sort of a growth in great food in sort of train stations and basements and blah, blah, blah. This is one way where food has to get better. Because I think consumers are more knowledgeable and they're learning more than ever, mainly because of people like Mr. Liwei, who we have right now from The Joint.
Hi, Liwei.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Liwei, you are of this mysterious profession that Dave is talking about. This
actual fishmonger,
a real life fishmonger, right?
Fishmonger.
Like you're a fishmonger. Like this is the person when Dave's talking about this cliche of just ask your fishmonger. That is an illusion that you exist in the life of most people in America.
I think a lot of people associate fishmongering as like a used car salesperson, because whatever we say, a lot of times they think we're trying to like trick them into buying this fish. This is what I need to sell, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think that's disrespect to used car sales.
But
You're
gonna need the clear coat on this fish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's true. Like they're always buying fish is intimidating. Everyone's always has this front, like, they know what they're trying to buy, yet they may not know. So they just want to get scammed or suckered or whatever it may be, right?
But I would like to phrase it where the people that are selling the fish behind the counter, I don't want people to think that they're intentionally trying to mislead people.
They're not.
They don't know themselves.
Yeah, majority of them do not know. I think fishmongering is a dying craft because accessibility to fish in certain ways is diminishing, right? Everything is all about supply chain. And when we talk about like supermarket fish, all of that really comes through, cold chain, like warehouses. There's no one's really mongering the fish from the water to the market to your table.
Right.
There's so many warehouses that it goes through, and it's just about temperature control and how long can we make this product like okay in a box.
So let's talk about this for
longevity. It's all about
how long can you make this last.
How can you make this fish last as long as possible, because it takes valuable real estate space in a grocery store, and how do you sell it? I'd also like to, if we can, bring up purchasing food or fish mail order.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that later.
Yeah. But so I think there's a sort of essential thing here that we talked about when we did this primary source about beef in terms of quality, right? Dave, I think, set out this mission of how do you buy quality fish? How do you buy quality meat? But I want to talk about what that even means, right? I think people who are listening to this show probably have heard enough sort of platitudes about when you're buying whole fish, look for clear eyes, look for the smell, look for all this stuff. But like, zoom out for me, Dave. What is good seafood? What does that mean for seafood to be high quality generally?
Listen, there's all of the check the gills, all of these things that you'll hear. For me, it's pretty simple. It should be self-evident, right? It's like, oh, I walk outside, it's raining. It's raining. Hey, Liwei, Chris, it's raining outside.
Hey, this fish is good. This is good.
Hey, Liwei, Chris, I think it's really hot outside. The temperature says it's 102 degrees. Self-evident, okay? Quick collection of data, clear response, right?
For the average person, though, what does quality fish come? Does that mean it is?
Well, no, that's what I'm trying to say. Is like when you see it, when you see a like properly harvested fish, you're like, that's fresh. And fresh is a weird paradox. What we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Fresh does not mean, and there's nothing in fish, for the most part, that you want to eat just killed.
Right.
Exception of shellfish, right? Here or there, and Hue and other, which we won't go down that road. It's more about a textural play. But the idea of fresh is sold as a marketing, like a Christmas ploy.
When you see fresh at a average grocery store and it's on the sign next to whatever seafood, all that really means is it wasn't frozen. Is that what they are trying to convey to you? Because it doesn't have anything to do with
anything
how long
can be fresh.
It could be fresh, but still previously frozen.
I've seen fast food restaurants sell fresh salads.
See, yeah. So there's nothing. This is my favorite.
We
part
need
about
Noam Chomsky today, really, to talk about the semantics of what this marketing terminology. Fresh. Do you sell fresh food?
Yeah.
But it's dry aged.
Yeah.
But it's fresh. But fresh as a term when it comes to fish has no official designation.
I think it's depending on what you want to eat, in what context.
Fish.
No, but in what context?
Like
right?
I'm selling you I'm saying there's no government standard that says fish has to be this, this, and this for you to label it fresh.
Well, actually, if you want to talk about government standard, fresh just means non-frozen.
Okay.
But they sell frozen all the time.
Yeah.
Previously frozen.
So
like
fresh,
all the time.
So okay, we'll move on.
Also,
to this.
let's add, there's seasonality to fish.
Right.
Okay? Which if you go to Japan, most people know the seasons of the fish that they're going to consume.
Right.
Right.
So fresh means defrosted, and speaking of seasonality, that's something we talk about all the time. Like you go to the supermarket, you can always get salmon every single day of the year in an American market. You can always get halibut no matter what. But like we have salmon in front of us. Talk about that seasonality. What would be the best time of year to catch and eat this fish?
Well, that's now the conversation is actually now. Are we talking about farmed?
I'm talking about
aquaculture
this fish right here.
Or wild fish.
Wild fish.
Right. So seasonality-wise, it's mostly going to be wild fish. Even though in aquaculture, yes, there's also up and downs of the seasons and how they grow and all the different even farming, right? Like grow carrots, it only grows a certain time of the year.
Sure.
So seasonality plays a big part, but for the most part, salmon is kind of like mangoes. You're going to get salmon from different parts of the world, different times of the year. So every market has salmon, like every market has mangoes.
Mm-hmm. But that's not to say that supermarkets don't sell wild fish. Oftentimes you'll get wild salmon, but it may be not Chinook or /king. It might be wild sockeye or wild chub or something else, or it might be previously frozen. Or if you do, because in California you can get local rockfish, fantastic fish, but it's not. Put it this way: at some point, maybe when it was put out in the shelf, it was properly handled. At some point, when somebody's cutting and then taking another piece, it gets mishandled, right? So at some point, I'm not trying to say that it wasn't handled properly, but now it's stored on ice, and now it's saturated in water, and that's how you quickly ammoniate it. There's all of these things that change, and I just don't know how you get a standardized sort of way of treating fish. And I want Liwei to talk, and I will shut the fuck up after this. I think the best way for the audience to think about this, because there's so many points of entry to talk about sort of the broken system of buying fish in a grocery store. I think that if an audience thinks about it this way, do you have the same issues when you buy dry aged meat? And I think most people don't. They can tell, oh, that's a good piece of meat, or that's grass-fed, that's local, look at the fat on that, that's a different coloration, that's more yellow, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like if you cook at home, you have a better understanding of what meat sort of different SKUs are. And I think you should take that same framework and apply it to fish.
Yeah. Yeah, but that comes with education, right? You have to know what to look for, I guess.
Or want to look for it.
Or what, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know this, Liwei? Does it matter what grocery store I'm going to? Like, where are most grocery stores getting their seafood? Are they different supply chains, or are most people getting their seafood from the same places?
If you're talking about like national chains,
Yeah.
it's all coming from a few of the same places.
Right. So it's all the same.
Because
sources.
they're set up to support a national chain.
Okay.
Right.
So where does let's look at this for instance then, like where are you getting fish?
So when I first started the seafood market, 7 years ago, the easiest way for me to do a seafood market was to replicate what everyone was doing, right? So I visited all the local shops, whatever. I replicated. Replicating means traditional. You see fish on ice, it's laying on ice, this and that. Pre-cut, everyone buys with their eyes. Oh, that looks shiny. It looks fresh. Mm-hmm. But man, it's very quickly, I realized that it was not sustainable. Here, I'm using that word again, not sustainable. But it's true. It's not. There's so much waste. A lot of fish goes bad fast, and a lot of times when it goes bad, it's just quality that I can't stand by, but maybe some other market can.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm set out to sell the best fish possible. Like I wouldn't sell it to somebody if I wouldn't bring it home to my parents.
Right.
And they're the pickiest people ever, at least when it comes to fish. I grew up around fish. We caught our own fish, right? So I know exactly how fish is from the moment I take it out of the water, how I transport it, how do I get it stored, and how do I finally get it in the kitchen, cooked and plated and eaten.
Dave, if you're not going to the joint, we should say the joint, is obviously here in LA. Liwei has supplied a lot of the fish for Dinner Time Live. I run into Dave there on occasion. If you're not going to go to the joint, how often are you buying seafood for your family at home, and where are you buying that?
Well, first, I think that you are seeing it in a lot of independent, ambitious restaurants around the country. It's just like 15 years ago, it started to be like, we're going to pickle everything in-house, ferment everything in-house. And now just about every restaurant that you would want to go to that's not a chain is making their own stuff in-house, pickle-wise, fermented products-wise. I would say most restaurants, if they have the space, now have a dry-aged fish box. Mm-hmm. And that's something you're going to get at restaurants now. I mean, so like, this trickle-down thing is going to happen, and I guarantee you, I'd bet my fucking life on it, that in the near future, it's going to probably be at your boutique supermarket, right?
I'm going to quote you on this.
It will. It will happen. You're going to have a dry-aged fish section.
Yeah.
You know why they're going to do that? Because they can charge a fucking premium. Just like there's a dry-aged meat market. Like, they're hanging meat because they can charge it like 40, 50% more. That's why they're going to do it. Follow the money. Yeah. That's where it's going to be. So to me, the question really is what I want to ask, what are the other questions that people might ask about fish? Mm-hmm. People ask freshness. Secondly is, what is sushi grade?
Yeah.
I hear that all the time. Or if you scroll through social media and you're like, oh, I'm going to show you how to buy sushi grade fish at like Costco. Or like, I was like, what? I'm not trying to say that it's not. But what is sushi grade fish? Where can you find sushi grade fish? And what does it even fucking mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Well, it's a loaded question. There's a lot of different answers, right?
I love Costco. Don't fucking aggregate me on that.
But sushi grade means of a certain quality that's appropriate for sushi, but it may not mean that it's sushi ready.
But
Right.
is there an official similar
There's
to
no
fresh?
there's no official like bar or parameter or qualification that makes something sushi grade.
So I've seen this exact interaction happen many times in grocery stores or fish shops where it's like you see the label, it says sushi grade, right?
Yeah.
And you will either see somebody asking for sushi grade, or they'll point to something that doesn't have that label and say like, is this sushi grade? And the fishmonger or whoever's behind the counter will be like, yeah, that's sushi grade. But like, really, it's nothing. It means nothing.
We get it a lot. I mean, consumers are programmed to ask these things. Is it sushi grade? Is it wild?
Like what? Like safety, quality? Like why do you think people ask that, Dave?
I think it's a way of sanitizing food in their head.
Yeah. So the store told me this was okay to eat raw. Basically, is what they're looking for, some license to do it.
Well, it's the same thing why people might be apprehensive of buying sushi at a gas station.
Sushi grade as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's sushi grade. I mean, that's fucking hilarious. I'm like, when someone goes to get like, oh, I don't want to get sushi there. I want to get sushi there. I'm like, I don't say anything. I'm like, it's the same fucking thing.
I know some of the companies that does sushi for Ralph's and the big supermarket chains. They go through so much volume that their like QA and QC is so stringent that it is absolutely the safest thing to eat.
And I'd also add, this is another sort of industry secret. There are a couple 3 Michelin star restaurants in New York that I know of that buy from humongous fish purveyors, like massive, like they supply like the biggest hotel chains and airlines. The reason they do that is they get the top cut of that crazy throughput. So what you want is, if you're going to have fish that it's not dry aged, you want crazy throughput.
Right.
So don't think that because something's big and like industrial that it's necessarily a bad thing. It's all in your mind.
Yeah. This is real. That's so interesting. Both of you are sort of saying like, you might thumb your nose at the grocery store sushi, but like that is moving so much fish through it. It's not lingering, and it's like the quality control, to your point, is super high.
But why is that any different than getting it delivered from your local place that might deliver you some spicy tuna rolls?
Same thing, right?
Well, there's just a little bit more. There's the Uber driver for one. Like that bag is going in someone's car seat or on the floor or whatever, and going through town for 45 minutes. Was it packed right? Was it temperature good? Whatever it may be.
Is there an argument to be made for like, I'm just thinking again about like the large grocery store versus like your ultra boutique-y grocery store where you think you're going to be getting the highest quality, but like they don't do the same volume, and they're always trying to have as much variety as possible. Like maybe that fish is just languishing in that thing for longer, and like quality is maybe not as high as your regular grocery store. Is that
I would
possible?
say 2 of the most boutique-y supermarkets in Los Angeles, they don't have good fish.
Well, and that's why I decided to open a fish market too, because I went to these most boutique or most prestigious markets, and I'm just like, ugh.
So you started to say something too, Liwei. So I want to get back into what Dave was asking about the sushi grade of it all. There's no official designation. Doesn't mean anything. Anything that's going into sushi can be called sushi grade. But you started to say it might be sushi grade. It's not sushi ready. What makes something in your mind not only fit for eating raw or in sushi form, but like excellent?
So I think the best way to put it is a sushi appropriate, right? You can have sushi grade salmon straight out of Alaskan waters, like caught this afternoon. I'm gonna try to have it for sushi tonight, and I wouldn't touch that thing with any. It's got so much worms, it's got so many parasites, and it's wild fish. It's sushi grade. It's super fresh. It's of super quality. It's from natural pristine waters of Alaska. So everything is check, plus.
It's super fatty. It's like
Yeah, but
okay.
is it sushi appropriate?
You want to tell them the deepest, darkest secret about eating raw fish in this country? You ready to blow the door open? Are you ready? Because I want the words to come out of your mouth, not my mouth. Because, quote unquote, this is now the Liwei show, not the Dave Chang show. Because this is all on you. I want you to tell the world, what do a lot of sushi restaurants not? even the best sushi restaurants do to their fish?
They freeze it.
What? Holy shit! Off the grassy knoll?
This was, I just spoke with a sushi chef that I just met last night. I'm not gonna say where, what restaurant, whatever it may be. Someone introduced me to him, and he came off and said, yes, I'm a sushi chef of 20, 30 years. And we got talking fish, and he's like, yeah, I will still go and prepare downtown LA at 5 o'clock in the morning, pick my fish, bring it back, and I'll portion it, and I'll put it in my super freezer.
And you know how much, if you go to, again, some 3 Michelin star sushi restaurants, won't say, there's not that many in this country, they have the most state-of-the-art freezer, like hundreds of $1,000 freezer. Because what does it do? Rapidly freezes your fish, your tuna, etc. What does freezing process do?
I call it cryotenderizing. But it preserves it for, in their mind, it won't go to waste. I will chipmunk it away in this box, and I will get to it.
Does it denature it at all?
Oh, 100%. It breaks everything. Right?
What else? Like what else in everything? Say it. Don't worry. Remember,
burns
the
it.
aggregators are coming after you, not me.
Well, I'll take a step back because I'm not anti-freezing. Because if you freeze my fish when it doesn't have the moisture in it, it actually works out pretty good. It's the best way to freeze fish.
Does it also kill some worms?
Oh, it kills kills everything.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it kills worms. But see, then it has
Wait, hold on. You're telling me fish have worms again? What?
We're taking down
the
the
ones
whole
that
fishing
people
industry.
want, right? The wild fish that they want.
What? You're telling me there's parasites out there that lodge their way into the fish?
Oh my gosh, you have no idea.
So what
I
happens?
wish people. Can you tell them the first time you pulled a big worm from the fish?
Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because it keeps you up at night.
What are we talking about, like size-wise here? When you're talking about a big worm and a big fish.
I've pulled a worm out of a fish where it goes from the head to the tail in one piece, and there's
What diameter are we talking about here?
We're talking about
Like
it.
an earthworm or thinner than an earthworm?
No, thinner than an earthworm. Okay, thinner
That's
than an
somehow
earthworm.
worse to me. Somehow grosser to me.
Like a spaghetti.
Oh my.
Literally the same size as a spaghetti.
There's worms in strawberries. Okay? There's insects in fucking fruit. I just think people understand, like, where do you think food comes from?
Yeah. Well, that's part of the. Well, that's the thing I don't want to know. That's why I want to ask you: is this sushi grade? I don't want to think about any of that.
Again, by the time it gets to the customer, all of it is clean.
So what has? Okay,
So
that's
how different is that if I serve you a batch of strawberries and there was a worm in a strawberry? I don't.
First, yeah.
We're gonna clean it, we're gonna process it, and it's gonna be as clean as humanly possible.
For
right?
sure.
By when you clean it,
Yeah.
oh, I see a worm, I'm gonna pick it out.
Yeah.
So what happens between, like you're starting describing this moment of we've plucked this beautiful king salmon out of pristine waters in Alaska. It has been feasting.
Let me phrase this too. I don't want people to fucking be like, oh. What do you think? It's like a minority of fish might have a worm.
Sure.
And he's giving you in his career the worst nightmare-ish story.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
But not all fish have worms. Most fish don't have worms.
Right. But
Except
it's
giant
naturally-
halibut.
It's naturally occurring. It's normal and natural.
You hear that, Josh Skeens? What is happening between what worms are not? What is happening between that plucked out of the water?
Also
and,
flounder.
I mean, it's a
I won't touch
flathead.
flounder. I won't touch
It
flounder.
sits in the mud. That's where all the worms are.
Real anti-flat.
No,
fish.
not like flounder. Grouper.
Big warm water
Big
grouper.
grouper. Big no for me.
But what's okay?
Even if you cook it,
I just no grouper for me.
What is happening between that fish like out of the water becoming what you said is sushi appropriate? Like what is the process from?
well, sushi appropriate is yes, you can have it for sushi, but you still need to treat it.
Describe
I mean,
that.
Freezing it.
anything can
Like
be
most
sushi.
people- yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like anyone can try to be a professional athlete.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a funny term.
So I mean, we actually have we've been asking for these because I think this will be relevant here, and we should get into these actual fish you have here. But we have been asking people for these voice memos for months now, and we finally have one. Although we're doing this live podcast, so this will have to be inserted in post. But Carrie P from Michigan.
Hi, Carrie.
Wrote it or sent us a voice memo to askdave@majordomomedia.com after our Skeens interview. And Carrie asked, my question is about ikejime. I've been fascinated by it since I read an article about it in Lucky Peach, and I know you talk about it occasionally on the pod. Is that something you'd be willing to do a live cooking demo on? We don't have a live fish, but you started to talk about sort of like the fish itself and how it gets processed, how all these steps. Talk about what ikejime is and like how we are progressing.
This is
down
where
the
I
line.
disagree with him on one bit.
Okay, so ikejime means, it's Japanese, it means live kill. So that means that purposefully, you've killed this fish while it was still alive in the most humane way possible. And what that does for the fish is it doesn't let it struggle to death. When it struggles to death, it releases a cocktail of chemicals in its body, right? If you were freaking out and then you died freaking out, you'd be full of adrenaline, a lot of lactic acid, everything built up, your muscles tense. So that's
This
not
is what
what
people
you
talk
want.
about with meat and like Temple Grandin is sort of like you don't want the animal to be panicked when
Exactly.
it's slaughtered.
And every once in a while, a cow will be so sour that you can't serve it because of the traumatic process.
It was killed improperly.
Which is why you want, as crazy as it sounds, the animals to be cool, relaxed, and then you murder them.
Right. Well, there you go. This is like that's the whole Temple Grandin thing was like figuring out how to get them calm into the thing, and I mean we'll get into the fish of it all, but like when you go to a USDA slaughter facility, the cow has to be killed with one shot. Like if it takes any cow more than one shot, like the plant has to close down.
Right.
You know. So like, what does that look like when you're talking about ikejime, live kill, sort of humane? Like, what does that process start to look like?
Remember the audience that every time you eat protein that was alive, it was alive.
It had to get dead. At some point.
It didn't grow off a tree. Not yet.
So with fish, what does that look like?
The fish means that they didn't, whoever harvested the fish didn't just throw it in some kind of cooler or whatever and just let it flop.
How do fish breathe?
Until
How do fish breathe?
through these things and they're
They extract oxygen from the water.
Yeah, and it doesn't work
And when
outside
you
the water.
what happens then if you take a fish out of the water? What might happen?
It's going to suffer for a little while there. It's going to flop around. I mean, you guys are both very experienced fishermen. I'm sure you have both seen in your fisherman careers, your angling careers, like a variety of ways that guides or whoever have just like dispatched a fish, right? From just like throwing it in a bin to whatever.
99.9% of all fish is fished this way.
Just like thrown into a bin and let to flop to
Suffocate.
death, to suffocate,
well,
right?
it's also people don't realize that the act of catching it on a rod and reel, that fight
Also generates a lot of that.
Actually,
No.
a lot of it.
Yeah.
Most of it is built up during that process of fighting the fish.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But when you release the fish, it'll calm down, it'll neutralize and
Mm-hmm.
balance back out. But when you kill the fish in that state after you've caught it, that's when it's full of.
Right.
And again, the Japanese have a food culture that's hasn't really changed too much in almost 2 millennia, right?
Yeah.
Oh, not 2 millennia, maybe 800 years.
Well, I mean, ikejime was developed in Japan at Tsukiji Market with fish coming out of fish tanks. They hold a lot of fish. They'll catch fish, they'll keep it live, right?
They'll pop the air bladder.
They'll take it out. When they take it out, they want to dispatch it as soon as possible. But usually they're pretty calm in the tanks. They've acclimated.
chilling.
They're just
Yeah.
chilling.
Yeah.
Right. And then they get it. They put it on a pillow, soft, nice, cover its eyes. And
So give me the you've got a couple of dead fish here, but I want to give me the sort of rough breakdown on how it would work, and I would like to see where Dave might differ in the opinion of
Well,
how
I'll say, like,
this is usually done.
This all happened before the Lucky Peach thing. It was like I was with Mike Anthony from Gramercy Tavern, Sap Baines, Claude Bussy, Mauro Colagreco. We're at Kikunoi. We're spending time staging around all the Michelin-starred restaurants, and we spent a week at Kikunoi's own. I mean, I've talked about it a lot because it's such an important memory for me.
yeah.
A giant room the size of this room with tanks everywhere, as high as the ceiling. It's like a library of fish. And they have a schedule on the wall about every diner. So, Chris Ying, voice of the internet, dining 4 people, 6 o'clock, and they'll know that the Madai should be killed at this point today. right? So it'll be proper in texture and flavor for you tonight by your 6th course, right? Like that's how like dialed in it is. You're like, what the fuck is happening? And then when they take it out, it's like the fish, like it's an extremely quick process. You brain spike it, so you take a spike and you literally spike the brain.
Just
and
like
this
cattle.
This is
Just like
where we
cattle.
somewhat differ. And then you take a rod, like different sizes of metal wires, and you bleeding the fish is also incredibly important. You put it in cold water and you bleed the fish out and you shoot the spike down its spinal cord.
Yeah.
So you sever the entire sort of nerve system.
Yeah. So what
So
this
it
looks
prevents
like,
the fish from
spasming
like
and
pissing out all the crazy shit that's going to make the fish taste dead. And also, you're slowing down rigor mortis, which will eventually happen, but you're now controlling it, and by controlling it, you're also changing the texture, and you're naturally enhancing glutamic acid production, which is why dry-aged beef tastes better. Dry-aged anything tastes better because the more glutamic acid is produced.
So for people, I mean, I want to get into the fish
He doesn't
itself,
think
but like,
that, he doesn't, you don't like doing the spine.
Well, I think it depends on the environment, right? As a fisherman, if I'm catching my own fish, I don't have time to do that. I want to catch another fish.
which part of it do you want?
I just want to make sure I dispatch the fish quickly, I kill it, and I bleed it.
Bleed and brain spike.
So
Which most people, I think, do.
and I've done both, right? And I haven't seen a tremendous benefit of running that wire with my own caught fish. But then it's
So the
it's a
common
compromise.
thread here is dispatch it quickly.
Yes.
Once it's out of the water, and bleed it. Like these are the important things here.
And listen, it's not an easy thing to do.
And so, like, yeah, I wanted
Imagine
to say,
a boat. I mean, imagine
on
you're
a
like
boat,
rocking.
Even if
or-
you're not on the boat, to put that wire down the fish is pretty.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. Like, I don't know if people are watching the video, like, what you are literally talking about, it is a spike. It's like an ice pick, basically, that you're putting in right here at like the brain. And then it looks like a straightened clothes hanger
Yes.
that you are
music
essentially
wire.
just running through the entire length of the fish through its nervous
like,
system.
But the good one, like the mask, there's like,
It just goes in and then out, and it's like done.
and then the fish are like,
And you said something really interesting, and I don't think people, again, there's such a disconnect. I don't know, maybe our audience is very educated about food, but you just brought up rigor mortis, which is like, I don't think people think about when an animal dies, whether it's a pig, a cow, a fish, a human, like, it goes into rigor mortis.
which is why the romantic notion that fish taste better when you're looking at the ocean is so fucking insane.
I mean, it's an emotional feeling, but yeah, you've got a big ass sign in your shop that says fresh is boring, and like this illusion of fresh fish that like plucked straight out of the water is going to be the best time to eat a fish, and like that's not
You wouldn't do it to
true.
game. Meat.
So what does that mean?
You
Like,
wouldn't do it
you-
to a cat. Like,
How many
even-
days after hunting something do you eat it typically? Like a big game. Like,
big game,
or like say like
if I grew up hunting,
yeah,
right? And growing up, we
or deer. Like how long
deer.
would you before you?
We would hang it for 11 to 14 days before we even touch it.
Yeah. Just before it becomes like palatable, texturally.
You don't wanna
desirable,
eat something
anything,
in rigor.
You don't want to eat something in rigor, right?
Besides, it's weird.
The texture is
It's weird.
It's just
it's
weird.
It's fighting back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
you could beat somebody up with a piece of fish.
Yeah. Because it's like so firm and like
it's a
fully
sword.
solid. Yeah. Let's like address these. So like once it's killed, then it gets into handling and butchery. Are you somebody who advocates for like somebody who's maybe nervous or tentative about buying and cooking fish to go whole fish first? Or are you going to go fillets and
I always
first.
want to source my fish whole,
okay.
because then I know every part of that whole fish will tell me how it was harvested, how it was processed, how it was traveled. There's a lot of indicators that we talked about earlier. People look at the eyes, people look at the gills, but they may not always tell the whole story. Like I would say 95% of the chefs out there, when they look at eyes and gills, they don't know what they're looking at.
Okay. Let's look at these and tell me what we're looking at. What are we looking at and what are we
Can I
looking
ask
for?
before we get to there, why is storing fish on ice? That's not a bad thing. Direct contact of H2O, whether it's liquid or frozen, with fish, a bad thing.
It's a different pH. I think depending on where the fish is coming from, like ocean fish, and you're putting freshwater ice around it, it's always going to change the pH of its skin. That's like you sitting in your bathtub for too long, right? You're going to wrinkle out.
I love that feeling. But again, for the audience listening, imagining if you bought a nice ribeye, 60-day dry aged, and you put it directly on ice, right? Like, and you let it sit a little bit in water for like 2-3 days. What would happen?
People assume that when they see things on ice, it's fresh. I'm not sure. I don't know why.
But you wouldn't. I mean,
so
that's
programmed
really
to-
interesting. You would never go to the butcher shop, and be like, "Oh, all these steaks are just laying on a bed of crushed ice." Like that's
But there's
perfectly
difference.
natural.
I remember, the Keller and the French Laundry, and I would talk to Benno about it too, right? And because we would store fish differently than everyone else. It's like you're storing it in a way the fish actually swims, and like you're storing it before dry aging
like, up
becomes
and
a
down
thing,
like
right?
this.
Like you don't always have to do like this to have beautiful fish, but you're storing it in a way that is extremely sort of logical and sensible. So you're stacking black bass up in rows, so like this, and they're in a big Lexan that drains the water, covered with ice. But the thing is this, water is constantly draining down. And you're also, the scales and the skin are still on, so it's not going to fuck it up.
It's not getting waterlogged. It's not just laying on one side.
And if you go to El Cano, we talk about that restaurant all the time, they have a state-of-the-art freezer ice section where all the drainage goes down, and it's just like basically shelving with perforated holes everywhere with like crushed ice. It's an amazing way of doing it, especially if you have fast throughput. If you know you're just going to go through it quickly, then it's not really an issue. But for everyone else, imagine that you were just storing your meat with direct contact to H2O.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have to answer this question because this was the first one that came up on our Discord with people who are watching it right now. But if you don't own the joint and you don't shop at the joint, where are you gonna buy? Can the average person buy high quality fish? And where can they do it?
I can't.
You can't.
I can't.
I can't.
It's just not possible in this country, short of.
I'll buy
there's a
frozen.
shop.
I'll buy frozen fish.
Yeah.
And I'll try to buy wild salmon. My kids love salmon. I go to his place to buy ikura all the time, and occasionally we'll buy like nice pieces of fish. But for the most part, I'll buy frozen. I'd rather just know the provenance and the fact that it's frozen, right? And again, I talk about this all the time. Frozen fish, lower ceiling, higher floor than anything that might be fresh and mishandled. And my freezer is stocked with frozen fish because I don't have to worry about it. And like, again, it's not going to be fucking mind-blowing, but it does the job for sure.
Where do you think, Liwei? Obviously, what you guys are saying is like is pretty shocking for most people. I think like you're both saying it's not really possible in this country unless you know somebody.
But also, you can buy fish, but it's so fucking expensive. You got to pay for shipping, and also like people aren't going to break down a whole fish. They barely have fish pliers. How are they going to break?
Right.
You know what I mean?
So where do you think is it? I mean, was it like just consumer education, or if you're taking it as a whole, whether it's like where the fish comes from, the fish itself, how it's treated how it's caught, how it's treated on the boat, how it's transported, how it's treated in the grocery store, where in the sort of system do you feel is
all of it?
The worst part?
I think it's logistics. Mm-hmm. I think getting product around the world is probably one of the hardest things to do. Mm-hmm. And once it gets somewhere, it just, moving through warehouses and having that temperature control, that consistency of the temperature control is very, very difficult.
Because our meat is coming from ranches in, across
Canada,
the country, Canada,
wherever, right?
The fish is coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
Literally everywhere on the planet.
I mean, if you really want to be carbon footprint, you want to plug your charity.
Zero footprint, just check it out.
I mean, it's extremely difficult to eat fish.
Yeah.
Again, unless you're getting it. There's a reason why like salt cod at the supermarket might be the best fish you can buy. Mm-hmm. No joke.
For many reasons.
For many reasons. But we need to get a different understanding of what good is. It's not fresh. It's like, is it high quality? Can I do something delicious with it? So, salt cod, dried fish.
Protein.
We wouldn't be here today if we didn't have salt cod.
You mean humanity?
humanity.
Yeah.
And again, Asia uses dried fish all the time. Another thing that I think we're probably going to have to adopt more of, rather than just eating salmon all the time, is what people might probably consider fishy fish. What are your thoughts on people that say, "Oh, that fish, I don't like it. It tastes like fish"? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
That beef tastes like beef. Okay. That chicken tastes like chicken. Yeah, of course it tastes like fish. What do they mean when they say something tastes fishy?
So a lot of times fishy fish, one of two things. One is could be mackerels that has that specific flavor of fish that they may associate with. And another one is just fish that's rotting, right? The two different definitions of fishy.
But I don't think they taste the same. Like, mackerel doesn't taste like rotten fish to
But
me.
people associate,
Yeah.
Sardines,
Yeah.
anchovies.
Sure.
right? They're like, ooh, that's
That
really
bait,
gaming.
that bait fish.
Yeah.
stuff.
It's like pungent. It's
Right,
it's-
but if you can harness that flavor correctly,
Yeah.
it's absolutely the most umami possible.
Yeah, I mean the shiny fishes, the anchovies, the sardines, like all of that is the best fucking stuff to eat. Mackerel.
But also, like, we're gonna have to start eating, which I don't like, freshwater fish. You know, like it's not my bag, but
Yeah.
I just think we're going to have to, as we move on in this world, eat different kinds of fish or
Yeah.
less of it if you really want to be, sustainable minded.
Well, I think the first step is for consumers in the world to kind of like deprogram their mindset and stop asking for only wild fish. It doesn't work if the whole world eats only wild fish.
So
It's great.
It's
It's
interesting.
a great noble like concept.
I mean,
but
Dave has shouted out, I know you're a fan of Ora King in New Zealand, but, this is another point of contention. Like our mutual buddy Josh Skeens is going to have a whole thing about pellet feed and yelling about farmed fish, but like you're on the farmed fish train,
Yes, I am.
aquaculture.
Yeah. So I mean, it's different for a chef to say that they want to use wild fish only in their cuisine because they have other options when wild fish is not available. Right? They can go to poultry, they can go to pork, they can go to beef, whatever it may be, and that can sustain their business. Right? But wild fish is just not consistent enough for someone like me. That is, my only thing is to sell fish. If I only sold wild fish, I wouldn't have fish on my shelf half the time. Right? It's that consistency and that availability, and people don't realize a lot of the wild fish that's caught is on a boat for 30 or 40 days before it even gets to shore. Right?
Well, I
But
always eat
it's-
wild
it's-
chicken and wild beef.
Exactly.
But like the kind of fish that are, highly ambitious are certainly getting like, Josh had his own fisherman, right? Like
Right.
the boats going out, hand divered sea scallops. Like you have people that are getting bespoke products for fish or meat for a restaurant that serves a limited amount of people. But I mean, I just want to say I'm the biggest hypocrite of it all. It's like I am 100% in Josh Skeen's camp, but I also know it's like my kids, the only fucking fish they'll eat is salmon. So it's like
You're not about to buy wild salmon.
and I buy
ever
Ora
since
King from your restaurant all the time because I love King / Chinook salmon. It is so fucking good, especially when it's been properly handled and dry aged. And as you'll see right here when we break into it, it's so fucking good. So like it's the same reason I know I should be a vegetarian, but I can't. You know what I mean? It's like ethically, I completely am on the same wavelength. I know I shouldn't be buying farm-raised salmon. Even Ora's great, right? Best of its class, but I still have to because it's delicious. The same reason why salmon is by far, in a way, the most consumed, second most consumed protein in the world, besides chicken. And again, like, I don't want to talk forever, but there was, Patagonia did sponsored a documentary called Damnation. Like, I talked about salmon a lot, right? As an angler, etc. But and not just salmon. Like, I have seen black bass get eradicated. I've seen skate wing get eradicated on the East Coast. You go to Tsukiji Market now, you see bluefin tuna like way fucking smaller than it was 20 years ago. I have photos. I'm like, what the fuck? It's crazy. The before and then. And like, you used to be able to get salmon at the Connecticut River. On the East Coast. Like, that's a crazy thing. Again, just to remind everybody, anybody that sells you wild Atlantic salmon should go to jail because it's illegal. It's fucking illegal. But you'll see all kinds of marketing around Atlantic salmon, Scottish salmon, wild, blah, blah, blah. None of that is wild. But I don't know, I don't have the answer to find a way where we can, buy it in a judicious way, in a seasonal way, because salmon, wild salmon, is highly seasonal. I mean, it's just, what are the months?
Depends on where you are, right?
California is like May through like July, and then like September to October or something.
We didn't even have one this year. Right, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I understand the dilemma for sure.
But it just sounds like a holistic thing. There's like the whole system from top to bottom needs attention. Like, and it's interesting when you point to like the history of king salmon in America. Like, that is a world-class product that we, as like native to this country, but whether it's dams or whatever it is, overfishing, all of this, like, and then the handling of it, and then the marketing of it, and then the shipping of it, and then the preparation of it, right? There's so many elements that are like, it's a pretty broken system in terms of seafood in this country, right?
Well, for me, it's, I keep exploring to see how I can support farming better, right? If we just keep shitting on it, then they can't get better.
Right.
And then then it's...
And it is a necessity. To feed people, it's a necessity.
It is a necessity. I still want to be able to go and catch fish 40 years from now with my kids.
Yeah.
Right? So it is a necessity. So right now, if every single consumer is so programmed to only ask for wild fish and not support responsible farmers, that it's gonna like create new technology and develop ways to be more responsible for the environment, then they are gonna have to cut corners and produce in a poor way. Right.
Let me ask you guys a couple of quick questions before we get into the sort of demo portion of this pod, and our listeners will drop out of the audio. But where are you on? I feel like shopping for fish at the Asian market is a different experience than at like a Western market, especially with like the live tanks. Like, where are you on buying fish and seafood at your 99s and H Marts of the world? Is it a different supplier than like the other?
It's a definitely different market.
Yeah.
So they have like suppliers that supply all the Asian markets with the live tanks, and and most of that fish that's sitting on ice is probably been on ice for about 2 to 3 weeks, if not more. You can tell if you walk by the fish counter and it smells fishy, something's fishy, right? And that's
but
going
they have
back
much more turnover. I feel like in terms of like people buying fish there.
They have turnover, but at the same time, they're also trying to hit a certain price point for their consumers where they need to buy in such large volumes, it just needs to get stockpiled somewhere.
Right. And usually right in front of you.
Right.
What do you like buying out of the tanks?
No.
I actually, never buy out of the tanks.
No.
Those fish are kept on so much like antibiotics or whatever. It's these tanks I'm talking about.
I
Like,
buy spot prawns. I buy spot prawns at H Mart all the time.
Yeah. But you're no tanks for the fish too.
You know why?
Tsukiji market has good tanks though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about Tsukiji market or fish in Japan.
Versus-
that is completely.
yeah.
We're literally talking about Mars
Yeah.
for most people.
Yes.
Well, so, but you generally won't buy fish out of the.
Well, mainly because I don't want to deal with it. I'm not going to break down fucking fish. I'm not going to
Yeah.
do all that shit at home. You know what I mean? Like, and what am I going to do with the raw fish? I can get flounder. I can get, a flat fish live. What am I going to do with that? Serve it? I mean,
to yourself.
again, in Korean kue, you want it immediately killed.
Right.
That is a way of eating it,
Which
and
is
it's
why
delicious.
they sell it at H Mart probably.
Because it's crunchy. It's more about texture than it is about flavor.
Right.
It's when I'm saying about flavor, because you're dipping in gochujang and all these other delicious things. I love it. One of my favorite things to eat. What am I going to do? I'm not going to dry age it at home. You know what I mean? I'm not going to break it down. So it's just more about practicality. That's where restaurants.
Yeah.
But like as a home cook, I can tell you I have a hard time purchasing fish. Do I still do it? Do I sometimes buy the shitty fish at, I won't say which supermarkets? Yeah, I do it because I'm a hypocrite.
Right.
But like, it's not like I'm like, yay.
It's not that I don't. Like, it's fine. I wouldn't say you're a hypocrite. You're just not like a fundamentalist. You're not like a crazy extremist about
Well,
it.
he's
but like,
being real.
Yeah, he's being real about it. That's not hypocritical. Like, you're just not like a crazy fish.
But again, like there's nothing worse than when you buy a nice piece of fish from a supermarket and a day later it's ammoniated.
That's frustrating.
You feel like you got ripped off.
I kind of feel like you would know that that's going to go bad the next day, though.
I feel like sometimes it turns real quick.
Yeah, it turns real quick.
Yeah.
And you don't know, and you don't want to, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's very difficult. And there's just like other things. Like I try not to buy any shellfish out of the shell. I don't buy scallops at all, unless I know the exact vendor and it's been FedExed, which is why California, I think, has a hard time getting really nice scallops as a whole. Scallops need to be dry. If they're wet,
typically they come, I think, to the store in a bucket in a bag, right? And they just get dumped
which
out
can
of
be
this
good.
bucket. Yeah.
Just it shouldn't be wet. I think scallops are bought way too much, but shellfish to me needs to be alive. That's the only thing. Well, frozen shrimp still good.
Speaking of shellfish, I know this is unrelated, but we have a question from somebody who, Dave, is in the Williamsburg of Copenhagen right now. Regarding shellfish, what is the best way to purge them of sand? Lots of times when I buy razor clams or sea snails, despite soaking them in salted water, the experience gets ruined by sand and grit. You guys got any tips on purging
You need
shellfish?
a tank.
Yeah.
You need to starve them.
Need a lot of water.
Yeah.
No, you need good water. You need their water. You need salt water.
Right.
You need to
Purge
put them in water that they feel like they can live
Because
in.
purging is they are filtering the water because they're breathing through the water,
That's
right?
what
they're
they
processing
are.
the water.
They're
And
filter feeders.
so what I'm saying is like, I'm not explaining to you, I'm not asking, but like that is what's happening, and that you purge the sand because you're doing it in an environment that doesn't have sand. Like when they're living in
live
there,
in sand. They have sand.
that's why they have sand in them.
That's
so
why it's
purging them
normal
in
for them.
water just means we're going to try to encourage you to keep living in this sandless environment. Like that's the only way they're going to purge. You can't just like rinse them off and hope they're going to like spit out all their sand. They have to be living in water, basically.
I mean, I know people that, chefs clean live scallops and live razor clams all the time and sit there and make sure there's no sand.
Yeah.
It's tedious.
Because it ruins the dish.
Yeah. It is a terrible feeling.
It sucks when you bite into one of those.
I've ruined so many dishes.
All right, so let's let our audio listeners jump off and continue to do some demoing here.
Or you can log on at the Dave Chang Show.
Yeah.
Or listen and watch on Spotify. Or you can go in our Discord and complain.
Nobody's complaining today. Everybody's just, oh, here they come.
Oh, here they come. You egg them on.
You asked for it. And Florida Bunny jumped right into the call. So give us 5 stars if this is the end of your auditory listening experience. And subscribe to the podcast. But we're just going to keep on rolling here. Dave is tending to his...
Because I fucked up a dish yesterday on Dinner Time
He's
Live.
like paying penance today by remaking the dish that he didn't feel like he did well last night on. But why don't you dive in with one of these two here and talk us through like just beginning with what we're looking at, what we're looking for.
Well, I mean, we've been sitting here and about 20 pounds of fish here, and it doesn't smell like fish at all. Like we're talking. I don't think I've gotten a waft of fish.
No.
And I think
It smells so fishy.
That's me though.
You know, another bonus to buying fish from Liwei, I'll buy it on a Sunday, and I'll forget about it.
It just lasts.
It just lasts forever.
I know.
I'm like,
so there's science behind that, right? There's science behind. And when we dry age fish, what we're doing is not so much that what we do with beef, where it allows the glutamate to develop and this and that. So for us, it's the condition of the fish where we remove a lot of that water activity. Water activity in science is actually what makes things spoil.
ammoniated.
Or
spoil.
bacterial to grow. They test water activity in prosciutto, and that's how prosciutto is able to be shelf stable for months and months and months, right? So when I say water activity, it's not how wet something is, it's how much available water is available there for bacteria to grow. Like soy sauce is liquid, but it's got a very low water activity.
It's a high salt.
So no available water molecules for things to attach on and grow bad.
So essentially it's the same principle as like if you were to dry something to preserve it, you're just removing all water so that it is
exactly. And we're not making this into soy sauce, right? It will still spoil. We're just reducing it so that the chances of it spoiling is very.
But I agree. I buy fish from you
less.
like Dave, and I'm just like,
I don't have to cook it today. I love it. I was like, I don't have to cook it
I got
today.
a couple days
My
for
kids
it.
want chicken fingers. All right.
It's bulletproof, right?
It's bulletproof. It's
As
great.
opposed to like the shit from the supermarket, sometimes I'm just like, if I don't cook this in the next 20 minutes, I'm pretty sure it's gonna turn. I'm pretty sure it's going bad. All right, so what do we like?
And actually, that's how we test our fish.
Look at this fish and tell me what we're looking at. Eyes, gills, the whole.
Well, this is fish that is in our process of dry aging. So I pulled the freshest fish possible from our chambers. Both are going to be under a week.
Okay.
Under a week. So we source fish very fast, meaning that I need to understand what it takes for the fish to leave the water to get to my facility. Because I don't trust everything that happens in between.
Sure, not in your
Right.
control.
If it missed a flight or if it got lost somewhere and it found 2 days later, I don't know what happened to it. I don't trust that fish. The fish
Do you
were
apply that same logic to like friends? If they're just like late, you're just like, I don't trust you anymore. I don't know where you were.
100%. Because I don't know what happened, right?
Where were you? I don't know what you did in the last 2 hours.
But we have fish that is coming from around the world, and yes, if we want to talk about being green and carbon footprint, yes, fresh fish flies on planes. But there's also a good side to it, right? It's what subsidizes your plane ticket so that you can go on vacation, right? Cargo moves around. Planes are flying. There's probably more passengers than cargo. Like cargo waits for passengers,
Right.
right?
Got it.
So, it's what makes your flights available, right? So we have fish coming from New Zealand, we have fish coming from the Netherlands, and both of them come to my doors within 36 to 48 hours
Of being in the water.
of being out of the water.
Right. Okay.
Being out of the water. So that's how we source, right? I don't buy fish. I don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning like some crazy chefs to go downtown LA where there's this magical fish market that produces the freshest fish. I don't do that, right? We just work off of how producers harvest.
Oh, I know where they're going. I know exactly where they're going. They're going like around the corner from here, actually. I know where they're going.
There's a lot of them. It's not just, it's all around here, right? But I care about how the fish is harvested, when it's harvested, how it transports to me, so then I can treat it correctly. And what I mean by treating correctly is we clean it in a certain way, we process it in a certain way, we keep it in a very controlled environment, and after some time, now we have very stable fish. Very stable fish. And when I say stable fish, it doesn't have the blood, the slime, anything that can spoil it. That usually is a direct reason why fish is fishy.
So what percentage of like water weight do you think this salmon has lost in a week of hanging?
10% to 15%. I think salmon is about 12%. Some that has to do a lot with the natural fat to lean, like the fat ratio of a fish. It doesn't have more water. Some fish are very, very, very wet.
Yeah.
Right? And it'll lose 20% just like this. On a fattier fish, it loses a little bit less.
So if I'm walking in the shop and I see this guy hanging, what am I looking at? Is there anything, or am I just like, oh, that's a nice, pretty fish, I'm gonna buy this? If it's
Eyes are what most people go for, right? Clear eyes. But when they say, oh, I want to look at clear eyes, it's like, do you really know where you're looking at?
Has anyone ever asked Clear Eyes, Full Hearts Canvas?
Come on.
Somebody. Nobody?
Nobody watches Friday
you
Night
need a
Lights?
sign that says like clear eyes, full bellies, can't lose or something in the shop for sure. That's got to go in there.
For example, if you look at this guy here, I don't know if your camera can zoom in. This thing has been out of the water for 8 days, 9 days, and it's got super clear eyes. It didn't start that way, right? When we clean it, when we clean fish, we definitely use water. I know there is a lot of
Debate on that.
But scientifically, I've proven myself correct by using water to clean fish.
That's a real Dave Changism. Scientifically, I've proven myself correct.
I live in the best.
Because, I've tried cleaning fish without water, and it smells after 4 days,
Right.
5 days, 9 days, whatever it may be. It's not, there's too many variables. Way too many variables. And being in LA, I don't have the access to certain fish markets. And when I say market, not market, like certain fish like grounds
Right.
that allows me to have that luxury. But you know, gills is another big one people look at, right? Gills is full of blood, right? And I just had this conversation with a fish producer just the last couple of days. They want the image of bright red gills, so they're in predicament. If they bleed their fish, their gills will not be bright red, right? But it'll be better for the fish.
It's a little beet juice in there, man. Just spray a little beet juice and you're good to go.
So they're like, we want to bleed our fish, but then if we don't bleed our fish, chefs like it better because they see red gills. But there's more blood in the fish, and that allows the fish to be fishy and spoils faster.
Right.
So they're at a so there's a lot of education that we need to like change the narrative. Like a lot of chefs think, oh, if it's bloody or if it's this way or that way, it's better, but they don't even understand why, or at least scientifically why. Right. So so clear eyes is a thing. If a fish is rotting from the inside out, the core of the eye will turn white, not the surface of the eyeball. So if you you can look into its soul. You can. I have people say that when they look at my fish at like 10 days or 12 days, 14 days, the eye is so clear, and they look at it and they're like, "Holy shit! It looks like it's alive," right? Because the core, that liquid. What's that liquid inside your eyeballs?
It's literally called liquid inside your eyeball.
Okay, liquid inside eyeballs. That's the only liquid part that's left in this fish. And
That's the eyeball juice.
when the eyeball juice deteriorates, it gets cloudy. And that's how you can tell a fish is deteriorating from the inside.
Which one of these you want to see Liwei break down?
Dealer's choice. I mean, for those because everyone seems to go to Asia and Japan these days,
I've noticed.
go to the supermarket, go to the grocery store, and you want to see how fish markets can be, just go. And you're going to be like, holy shit, this is, young David over there went.
Just there.
And it is,
Japan?
Yeah.
it almost is a life-altering experience. You're like, wait a second.
They're light years ahead of
It doesn't have to be
everywhere else.
this way. You can literally go to any supermarket. It doesn't have to be a nice one. You're like, oh shit.
No. That's why David got that friendship tattoo in kanji right there. Break us down one, Liwei. Show us what we're the inside of one of these guys.
Sure. You work with salmon, so I'll break down this other guy here and show you guys. So this is fish. It's a cereal, a jack, similar to a yellowtail, cousin of the yellowtail. It's produced in the Netherlands. And fun fact about this producer is it's the first RAS system fish that I actually like. And when I say RAS, it's recirculated water. So it's almost like a tank, right? So traditionally, I've never been a fan of that. I always like my fish raised in open water. But now I'm taking a different perspective on RAS, and I see it like this. I see it as growing fish in a greenhouse. Everything is so controlled. The water is monitored. The ratio of the water to the fish is monitored. The throughput of how they condition the water is all monitored. And this way, this fish will never get sick, right? It's grown in not a lab, but as controlled an environment as possible. So this is the Kingfish Company out of the Netherlands. Essentially, this is the same exact species as your local California yellowtail.
Okay. Just with a Dutch accent.
With a Dutch accent, right? But
Funny to nobody.
Hey, listen, I scientifically proved myself correct. It was very funny.
I'll go ahead and break this down, and I'll show you its flesh and how little blood this fish actually has, or I should say.
I always
in the
found that
state.
like shocking, at least when I was in Japan. Like you could go to, like Japan, they'll extremely adventurous eaters. A lot of things raw. I've had all kinds of things raw. The one thing that they're squeamish over, for the most part, is blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they know the blood is bad.
Yeah. The only group, well, not the only group. Chinese eat blood.
Crazy blood.
Yes, but
The
it's,
Japanese like no fucking way we're touching
Chinese
blood.
blood. Southeast Asia, you'll eat like blood, but Japanese like don't like to touch
They
it.
get
don't
really
wanna touch
squeamish
it.
over blood.
Yeah.
Chefs do. Like,
except for
it's
in
like
their
toxic.
except in their anime.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed, I think specifically with dry aged fish, is like the fat is so much more visible and prevalent. Like you can see like a sheen.
well,
on
I
this
think
here.
that's also the different species that we choose to work with tends to be fattier. So we don't just work with any fish. We select the fish, right?
That's how we choose employees here at Major Tiffins.
After Chris Yang, I'm never gonna make that mistake again.
He bet big on a fat one.
Usually the fat ones are better, but we work with producers that how we know the fish is being raised. Consistency is critical, right? Consistency, how every single fish is like the other one. With wild fish, you don't have that kind of consistency. With wild fish, you can harvest like the superstar school of fish, right? But then every single fish is going to be different, just like humans. Everyone is going to be different. But if you can control how they're raised, then there's going to be more consistency. You expect you would expect Ora King to taste a certain way almost every single time,
Ora King's great. They make a great product.
right? And even with this fish, which is a yellowtail, and most of the time it's being served as a sashimi, crudo, right? And when you eat something raw, you can tell that it's good.
Right. So speaking of which, you took off this side of fish. What are people? Here's like a thing that's I think confusing to 99.95% of people. If I'm getting a piece of sashimi, what is like where's that cut? Where's that slice of fish coming from on here? Like in what way? Or just like I guess.
Well, I'll show you, right? It depends on where the chef wants to serve from, all right?
This is the belly. This is the loin.
So you have this in two halves. That's the belly, all right? And then this is the middle. We call it the bloodline, but it's just myoglobin, muscle. They call it bloodline because there's traditionally a lot of blood, but after we are done with it, we remove a lot of the blood, and now it's just muscle that has flavor.
Which is why, like, if you go to certain Japanese restaurants, they'll serve you like a slice of sashimi with
A little bit of
bloodline in it.
But if you are,
I learned that the hard way.
how?
I was like, they fucked this up. I can't remember which restaurant. They're like, no, you dumb.
That is like the number one feeling of eating in Japan. It's just like they fucked this up. No, you did.
But see, like,
Okay, so essentially, the slice of sashimi you get from wherever you are on sushi is a little crosswise slice of the loin.
yeah, just like that.
Right? It's not across the loin this way. It is just.
Uno más, por favor.
The hand just came right back out. This guy's a fucking fish consuming machine.
This is the open bar.
I do like to imagine you just at a wedding doing this and Dave just standing there nearby, just out. No, I
But
never get
see,
tired of that.
So can I ask? Now they have this, right? Of this booty yellowtail family.
Yeah.
What does a person that's trying to learn about fish and to broaden their sort of recipes, what do they do at home? How do they cook this? Or do they cook it at all?
Well, see, that's the thing. I think if you have quality fish like this, fish is intimidating to cook for everybody. Chefs, newbies, home cooks, whatever, right? Chefs try so hard to mask or make fish taste better when it's fishy or crappy or shitty or whatever.
It's not just, that's why sauces were invented.
Exactly, but when
Legitimately.
right. But see, like this interaction I just had with you, if it's good, you don't have to do much with it, and you'll be happy with it, right? So the same thing goes for a lot of our consumers that buy fish. That when they get
I think
this,
most of the people who are buying from you are eating raw.
No, it could be raw or cooked.
But you think most of your customers are probably buying for some sort of,
Not
raw
necessarily.
preparation?
I don't think there is a distinction there. I think there are a lot of customers that want to come and get sashimi for home.
Yeah. I think underrated by the joint is the smaller whole fish that can just be like roasted, pan fried, whatever. Fucking so delicious.
The branzino.
Oh my
Like,
God.
I know there's so many chefs that fucking hate branzino. Okay,
That's me. I fucking hate branzino.
I'll make it a point to say there's branzino and there's my branzino.
Bronzinissimo.
Yeah. So
Branzino, excellent. That's the involved. I don't like. I hate branzino.
it's a clean, mild whitefish, right? And when we treat it the way we treat it, it elevates a lot of aspects of it, even when it's cooked. You get extra crispy skin.
Yeah.
You get extra fatty, tender bite, and it's different than your traditional fish. And that's across all different fish, right? Whether it's kingfish, salmon, branzino, tuna, whatever it may be, right? Tuna is another one. Tuna is like the cow of the sea. It's big, it's massive. Some could be 600-800 pounds. It has a lot of blood. So how do we treat that fish, knowing that it has a lot of blood, and make sure that it doesn't spoil and it tastes good, right?
Different use for belly? You're just still slicing the same
No,
way?
I'll still slice the same.
When would you cook this fish?
If I'm bored of eating it raw.
And if you were going to cook it, how would you cook it?
Specifically, my choice of cooking any fish is charcoal. I love cooking on charcoal. I can get a crackling skin, and that fire, that very high temperature of charcoal, gives it that nice flavor.
Okay, now give a useful answer. I mean, most people aren't gonna cook with charcoal. If they're using their stovetop, what's a good way? Would they just use the broiler?
I think the easiest way for people to cook fish is in the oven, because you can set the right temperature and set the right time, and then it'll be okay. On a stove with the fire, there's too much control. I don't know what kind of pan you have. Everyone's level of high and low is a little bit different. So I just tell people, a piece of salmon, put it in the oven, 380 degrees, 12 minutes, you're done.
What would you do, Chang, with this piece?
I mean, I would definitely serve. If I got a half, I would serve usually this raw, because I wanted fattier.
Belly section, yeah.
Maybe a little bit of this, and I would save this because I would get tired of it. After the second day, I would cook it.
Yeah.
And what would you do?
And I would probably just, I'd probably pan roast it really fucking hot on one side, and that's it. And, flip it over, just kiss it on the other end, and it would be sort of, the cuisson would be like rare to medium rare.
But see, that a lot of people, when they cook at home, they don't know how to get things very, very hot. They're afraid of the heat, too. So
I'm still afraid of the heat. No, but there's a lot of different ways. But I'm a big fan. If I'm cooking at home, we've talked about this on this podcast in a variety of times over the years, is the broiler is fucking awesome.
It's your best friend.
It's so good. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Broiler high. I mean, I would just cook it on one side, and then usually it's like how long? It's like, well, if you cook it and it looks done,
It looks done.
then it's done. I hate this. I don't want to be an asshole about that, but if it looks like it's really good to eat on one side, then it's done, and just flip it over and just kiss it on the other end. I mean, to me, I don't want to eat a fish. It's almost always rare in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I
I'm
agree with
cooking
that.
it, if it's cooked,
Yeah.
It's like cool in the center, where again, I don't want to cook fish sous vide. I fucking hate that, but I want to see the gradient in temperature contrast in the middle. But for the most part, I'm cooking fish mostly on one side.
Yeah. I always dread seeing somebody cook salmon to that point where the protein, the fat starts to coagulate out, the white starts to the egg whites start to pull up on the outside. I'm just like,
Well, you get
that
a lot with
was
sous vide.
done a long time ago, man.
But sometimes it's hard to avoid that.
For sure. Yeah. What's happened? How you want to give us a little update back there?
No, I gotta let it cool down. Again, I fucked this up yesterday by using the wrong rice. By using the logic that you did, because I scientifically proved to myself, I pulled the wrong rice yesterday. I didn't pull the wrong rice. In arm's reach cooking, it can be a boon or the bane of your existence. I got too lazy to go get the glutinous rice. And I was like, I can fucking make this happen. And I pulled regular short grain rice. And I could have made it work if I changed the ratio of water, etc., but I didn't. And I fucked it up yesterday. And now, I'm penance, I'm trying to actually not do it again.
It's just self-flagellating over here, basically. I will say one other impractical, unuseful to our audience way that I've seen you cook fish is just to bring it to a Chinese restaurant and have them do it for you.
Steaming fish, underrated.
Steaming fish, tremendously underrated.
Steaming fish is excellent. But it depends on whether or not that fish is appropriate for steaming.
Yeah.
I wouldn't steam this guy.
What are your favorite, like, for that sort of Chinese steamed fish, ginger scallion, like, what do you like?
Some kind of white fish, like a branzino. Or
Internet's really curious why you are hating on Bronzino, though, Dave.
Because it's fucking boring. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's like, it's useful.
That's his family, man.
I'm just saying, I enjoy a Toyota Camry, a Honda Accord. That's what it is.
100. It's a good analogy.
It is.
Yes.
And I don't hate it. I'm just like,
It's a
But
necessity.
you're saying your Bronzino is the Camry with the full luxury
Oh
trim.
yeah, it's
full luxury, the LS.
No, it's the Lexus.
And here's the
Lexus
thing. The
variation.
reason I am being a snob about it is, I was driving a Honda Accord before it became fucking omnipresent. Okay? And now everyone thinks I'm an Uber driver. It fucking pisses me off.
You were on the Bronzino.
Yeah, I was like, shit.
No, but like a whitefish, like a snapper of some sort, or a cod, like a rock cod.
Yeah.
Pacific rock cod, or rockfish.
Man.
Steamed, very delicious.
When are we going to have the next meeting of the, what did you call it, Dave? The Courvoisier Club? When Dave heard about our Chinese dinner, he was like,
The Chinese Illuminati.
Courvoisier Club over here.
The Remy Martin Club.
The Remy Martin boys.
He heard about that?
I told him about it. I tried to bring him out there. He's like, dude, I'm not invited to
I'm not going out there.
I'm not invited to the Courvoisier
This is
Club.
like in the heart of darkness.
No, you were invited. You just didn't come out.
Yeah, I ain't going.
Anything else you want to show us on this fish before we let people out of here?
Me?
This guy. You want to show us anything? So,
You have any more questions for me on fish? I mean,
I fucking scientifically proved myself right about all of my fish knowledge, so I'm good to go.
that whole thing with water, it's once we've cleaned fish like this and we've gotten into our chambers, it never touches water again.
Yeah.
When it cuts open like this, it doesn't
To
come.
that point, are you also a subscriber to the philosophy of don't wash or rinse your fish once you get home?
You mean after you buy it?
That's because
No,
I think
you
a lot
never
of
buy
people
it.
do
Who does that?
I
Yeah,
think
you
a
never do
lot of
that.
people do that.
Don't wash any protein.
Well, they wash
I
it
think
because
so.
there's
Chicken. Don't wash your fucking chicken.
I think that is an incredibly common practice.
because they're washing the stank off.
Yeah.
That's all they're trying.
Well, I
You know,
Fish,
if that is
chicken.
true, then we deserve the fucking president that we're gonna get. I mean, shit.
Listen, I don't want to say anything, but I think we got some meat washers in this room right here with us right now. So I'm just saying, I think there's some meat washers
No, I
here.
think water is your friend. I mean, you just need to know when to use it.
Wash your hands, not your fish.
Yes.
If somebody is listening and they're like, oh, I don't live in Los Angeles because I hate that town, but I would love to try Liwei's food. How do I, do you mail order?
Yeah, we mail order.
Got a
look us up.
website or something?
Listen to your shameless plug moment.
Here we go. I mean, look us up, jointseafood.com. You can see our provisions list, our fish availability list. Email us. We ship nationwide.
And you can always email Chris at majordomemedia.com.
You can try. You can keep on trying. I'm not you can keep on trying it. Also, underrated, your hand roll bar is a fun little
Yeah, the hand roll bar,
I'm trying not to plug that because that's scientifically proven to be my little restaurant.
It's amazing. I'm just like, is nobody else going to catch on to what's happening right
The
now?
hand rolls at the joint,
Very delicious.
but don't go there.
Don't go.
Don't support him on that venture.
100%.
We want No lines. I want us to be able to drop in at any point.
Which you just did,
I
and it
know.
was like a go, go, go. And
Yeah.
then
That's me, like, me and the kids too. Man, I might do that tonight. All right, thanks, Liwei.
oh, thank you.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Give us 5 stars.
Thank you for having me, as always. So,
Visit us. Smash that subscribe button.
Can you look at this camera and say smash that like and subscribe button for me real quick?
yes, smash that like and subscribe button.
Great. Make that into a meme. Perfect.
All right, joinseafood.com.
Are we out? We're not out. I'm
Not
just
out.
talking.
We'll just keep going. You want another slice of this? Who wants a nice slice of this?